Hi there, Neil McGee with the UVA School of Data Science. In this little video, I'd like to show you how to sign into GitHub when you're using the command line tools. So if you're using the command line Git and you want to push or pull to private or public repositories, how do you sign in? How does it know who you are? And really, in the old days, just like three or more years ago, there were two main ways to do this. One is you could use a username and password, or the second way is you could use an SSH key pair. And the SSH key pair is really secure, very robust, still is a great way to go. But the username and password method was dropped because usernames and passwords are notoriously weak, and people never remember to change them, and they're just they're kind of easy to get through, or they're the easiest of all the methods to break. So GitHub in 2021 dropped support for usernames and passwords from the command line. You can still use them to sign into the web console, of course. But from the command line, they instituted a new method called a token, a PAT, a personal access token. And in fact, here's a blog post about an even newer, fancier version of PATs, of tokens that are fine-grained. And this means you can scope a token to have particular powers on a particular repository. And that way, if the token ever got in somebody's hands, they really only have that particular power on that repo to do something. So it's a lot more secure. But we're just going to use kind of a classic token, and let's just go ahead and set that up. If you go to, let's go to the home page of GitHub here. I'll just show you how to get there. Sign into GitHub. Go to the upper right corner to your profile picture, and go 3/4 of the way down to Settings. And then go all the way to the bottom on the left to Developer Settings. You are the developer, so let's set something up. And here's Apps and Tokens. So unfold the personal access tokens and click on Tokens Classic. And you can see I have a few here. You can delete them and manage them. You can see when they were last used and everything. But we're going to generate a new token. And so go ahead and select Generate New Token for general use. And I'm just going to call this thing, I can just add a note to myself. I'm going to call it Demo Token. This can have spaces, it can have punctuation, it does not matter. This is just like a human label for this thing. And then I can give it an expiration, and I would encourage you to expire these things occasionally. I'm going to give it a custom one of tomorrow. So this just actually expires on the 13th. And then you can give it, and this doesn't give specific repo by repo permissions, but this gives particular scopes of permissions. And so it has control over all repositories I have access to, and workflows and packages. Let's just go ahead and select all of these. So this is a pretty nice, powerful token we're creating that can do anything, basically anything that I can do with an SSH key or in the GUI of GitHub. This token will be able to do it. So I've selected them all, I've given an expiration date, and I've given a note. So I'm going to go ahead and generate this token. Great. So now you see a little green bar with a token in it, and this is the actual token. And note here above it, it says, make sure to copy this. You won't be able to see it again. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to just paste it into the screen, even though it's not a command. And notice this, if I refresh the page, there's my demo token. It's never been used. I could delete it if I want, and it shows me all the scopes and powers that it has. So that's it. I'm done with my token creation, and now I just need to use the token. And so let's show you how to do that. Okay, so now how do we work with the token? How do you exactly use it within the context of working with a specific repository? So I've got just a demo repository here called dev container test. I'm doing some other stuff in here, but this is a great use case for it. So I'd like to clone this repository locally and work with it. So I'm going to click on the Code tab, click on the HTTPS address. I don't want the SSH, I want to make sure it's the web address. And I'm just going to copy that and shift over to my command line, and I'm going to say git clone, and then I'm going to paste this address. And now one little thing I'd like to augment. You can change this after the fact if you wanted. You could go ahead and clone it, that would be fine, as long as it was public. But I'd like to augment this by copying my token once again. And I'm going to go back in this address and insert the token with an @ sign. So now this address is git clone encrypted web address token at github.com. And just remember to yourself, this should look like an email address. And then slash my account name, slash my repository name. And some people might see, in documentation, you might see, oh, well, you're really supposed to put your username and then a colon and then the token. That's totally fine. That will work great. That's sort of the Cadillac way to do it. But the token itself works sufficiently that it knows who I am and it knows that I have access to make changes to this repository according to whatever powers this token has. So I'm going to put my cursor at the end of that. I'm going to clone this whole thing. I'm going to move into that directory, and you can see I have 3 files and really kind of 1 folder, which I have here. 3 files, 1 folder, the .dev container folder. And just a reminder that this .git directory is actually created and managed locally, and it does not get synchronized up and down or anything like that. It was copied initially, parts of it with the clone operation, but nothing else is going to go up. And so I can make all sorts of changes and settings and stuff like that inside of the .git folder that I can be assured remain private. So for instance, if I look in there, there's a config file. And when we look at the remote origin, the GitHub address, it's a URL. And here is that long URL that we gave it earlier. So this token is going to remain private. It's going to stay right here on my laptop and not go anywhere. So I'm looking at my stuff, and let's say I want to work in it in VS Code. I can just say code dot. It's going to open that up in VS Code. I do have a dev container, but I'm not going to open it up in that right now. And I can just get a command line. And I can say, hey, what's the Git status here? Everything's up to date, and so on. I could just, let's just say I remove this line and I save this. Now I'll just get rid of the preview as well. Now I say Git status, and I can say Git add readme, Git commit, trimming the readme page, Git push origin main. And you can see now it just used my pat, signed in as me, it knows who I am, it's kind of seamless. And if I go back to the page and refresh this, trimming the readme page, there I have 7 commits total and so on. Now, I'm going to hide this. Some people say, well, okay, so should I keep the token like in a password manager or something? That would be great. That's a good way to do it. In fact, that's a good way to back it up. I use 1Password, so you could certainly store it there. I do one other thing, which is, let's see. I want to get that token one more time. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to actually set this. I'm going to export this as an environment variable in my environment, which is my Mac here. And you can do this in Windows just as well. If I'd like to see what shell I'm in, because I'm in a command line here, I can say echo $0. That means, hey, the runtime that I'm in, show me what that is. And I'm in bash. Sometimes in Macs, you might be in the Z shell, you might be in the C shell, things like that. But this is the bash shell. And so if I'd like to, I could set this. I'm going to just use the simple text editor nano. In my home directory, there is a file called bash.rc. It's a resource file for bash. And this is a place I can set aliases. I can have all sorts of settings. So I keep my history really long. My default editor is nano. I like color. History control erases duplicates and so on. I'm going to just say export GitHub_token. I want to export that thing. And so what's nice about that is that this is going to be available to me at all times as just a plain old environment variable. And so I'll save this. And now I have to do one thing. I could either quit my terminal completely or reboot my laptop, or I could do this little shortcut, which is to say source bash.rc. Hey, refresh from the source here. And now let's cd again, and let me look at my history. And let's get this git clone command again. Sorry, let me copy it. And now if I'd like to git clone, oops, a couple too many instances of the phrase git clone there. And if I'd like to, I'm just going to trim this back to the very original sort of address, what we copied out of GitHub. Git clone web address github.com/account/repo. At this point, I can just, since I'm in bash, I can now just call that environment variable. I can say, hey, GitHub token at github.com. And using this method, I don't ever have to ever copy and paste that actual token again at all. It has this universal name, this environment variable. I can just refer to it as and call it at any point within the command line. So hey, git clone from that, and that will work. That's right, I've got another one. Dev container test 2. So there, we cloned it. And now at this point, I've got two repositories of the same exact repository, 2 copies. But this GitHub token method for calling the token itself for my environment is super useful. Again, that environment is local to me. It's not published anywhere in the world. I'm not publishing my .bashrc file into GitHub or sharing it with anyone else. It's local to me, and so it's a local value set. Now in Windows, there's actually a way, and you just Google for how to do this, but there's a way within Windows that you and your user account can export a variety of environment variables. You can create all sorts of new ones, and an environment variable is, here's another one, Twilio. These are dead, so I know that they don't work here. All they consist of is a key and a value. A key and a value. So this is a way that you can be assured that you can call any key by name, and then it will spit out the value. It's just a way of referring to a value that is subject to change or that you want to keep hidden away, and so on. So that's it. That's how to use a personal access token when authenticating to GitHub. Thanks.